Hello students, welcome back to the discussion on operators in Python. In our previous class, we have discussed about what is an operator, and also we have listed down several types of operators used in Python. And among those 7 categories of Python we discussed about the first 4 categories in our earlier class. Okay, so this is a continuation class for the previous one. We'll discuss about the remaining 3 categories of operators in today's class. Okay, right. So let us start with the remaining one. So if you can recollect the 7 categories of operators we listed down in the earlier session, they are arithmetic operators, assignment operators, relational operators, logical operators, bitwise operators, membership operators, and identity operators. Among these, the first 4 categories, that is arithmetic operators, assignment operators, relational operators, and logical operators. We have discussed about these 4 categories of operators in our earlier class. Okay. So today I will continue with the 5th one, that is bitwise operators in Python. Right. These operators are very special in any language because they don't operate on values. They operate on binary equivalent of the values. Okay, so that means these bitwise operators considers the binary equivalent of values and performs bitwise operations. That is the reason why the name is given as bitwise operators. They don't perform the operation as a whole. They apply the operation at bit level. Okay, individual bits are applied with the corresponding operation, right? So we'll see in a while how these bitwise operators are different from other categories of operators. Okay, let us have a look at these types of bitwise operators in Python. There are 6 categories of bitwise operators. The first one is binary AND operator. Second one is binary OR operator. Third one is binary exclusive OR operator. Fourth one is binary ones complement. Fifth one is binary left shift operator. Sixth one is binary right shift operator. If you observe, all these bitwise operators are same as the operators you learned in C language. So same 6 bitwise operators in C language also. Okay, and look at the symbols. Okay, so you need to use the symbols here. This single ampersand, single pipe symbol for representing binary OR, this cap symbol for representing binary XOR, this tilde symbol for ones complement, left shift for this is 2 less than symbols for representing binary left shift, and 2 greater than symbols for representing binary right shift. So you need to remember these symbols now. Okay, and if you observe the names here, and these 2 names are already there in logical operators also, but they are names in logical operators, but here we are using symbols. Okay, single ampersand and a single pipe symbol represents this AND and OR operation in bitwise. Okay, so now let us understand each of these operators one by one. Have a look at the first one, binary AND operator. We assume 2 values for A and B. A is 60 and the corresponding binary number is given here, and B is 30 and the equivalent binary value is given here. When we perform these operations, we will consider this binary equivalent of the numbers, original numbers, okay, for explaining these operators, right? Okay, so let us start with the first one, binary AND operation. So we know that A is 00111100 because it is representing 60. Okay, so let me write it here: 00111100. It is representing 60. And what is the second number? Second number is 30. So it is 4 zeros, 1 1 0 1. Okay, so the B value is 4 zeros, okay, and 1 1 0 1. 1 1 0 1. So it considers the bitwise operator considers the binary equivalent of original numbers. A is 60, so it considers the binary equivalent, an 8-bit representation we are taking. It depends on your computer. If it is using a 32-bit representation, the entire number is represented as a 32-bit value here. All the remaining numbers between this is zeros. Okay, so remaining the 24 bits are also going to be zeros on left side. Okay, similarly here also it considers remaining 24 bits as zeros. Okay, so it depends on if your computer is a 32-bit computer, then it takes it like that. So here we are considering only 8-bit representation for our understanding purpose, for simplifying the things. Okay, now let us understand how it performs. It performs the operation on individual bits at corresponding position. So what are the bits at corresponding position? The first one, 0 and 1, these two. Okay, so this 0 and 1. 0 and 1 is going to be 0. It's a simple multiplication. 0 and 0 is going to be 0. 1 and 1 is going to be 1. 1 and 1 is going to be 1. 1 and 0 is 0. 1 and 0 is 0. 0 and 0 is 0. And 0 and 0 is 0. So it is 4 zeros, 1 1 0 0. This is the answer, 4 zeros, 1 1 0 0. So A and B will result in this value after performing bitwise ANDing. You need to understand that point clearly. It performs operation on bit level. Individual bits at corresponding positions are applied with this operation binary AND. Okay, so the truth table also you should remember. The truth table is 0 and 0 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, 1 and 0 is 0, 1 and 1 is 1. Okay, right. So this is about the first one, binary AND operation. The next one is binary OR operation. Okay, you should understand how this binary operation works. We'll consider the same set of bits, but this time how it works is, it works like if both the bits are zeros, then the result is going to be zeros. If at least one of the bits is 1, then the result is going to be 1. Okay, so now let us take the values again to understand this operation. It is 4 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0. So this represents the A, which is 60. Okay, and the next one is 4 zeros, because B is representing 13. It's going to be 4 zeros followed by 1 1 0 and 1. Okay, so you need to apply OR operation on this now. 0 or 1 is going to be 1, 0 or 0 is 0, 1 or 1 is 1, 1 or 1 is 1. So if you have at least 1 1, the result is going to be 1. 1 1 0 0. So it is 0 0 4 ones followed by 0 1. Okay, so that will be the value returned by A or B, right? So the truth table you need to understand for binary OR is 0 or 0 is 0, 0 or 1 is 1, 1 or 0 is 1, 1 or 1 is 1. Okay. Now coming to this third one, binary exclusive OR operation. This truth table is a little complicated when compared with the OR operation. Okay, so it says that 0 exclusive OR 0, okay, is 0. The result is 0. 0 exclusive OR 1 is 1. 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1. 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0 again. Okay. So the difference between OR and exclusive OR is here. When both are ones, the result is 0 here. When both are zeros, result is 0. If at least one is 1, that is for the combination of 0 and 1, the result is 1. In binary OR operation, it is going to be 0 only if both are zeros. Okay. In all the other cases, if at least one is there, the result is going to be 1. Okay. So this is how binary exclusive OR operation works. So if you perform that operation on these 2 bits again, okay, then it will give you 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. Why? Let us understand it first. So I'll write it here because the space is not sufficient. The first number is 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. Okay. And the second number is 4 zeros. How I am taking these numbers? Based on the values of A and B. A is 60, so it is equivalent to this. Okay. And B is 30, it is equivalent to this. 1, 1, 0, 1. So you know how to convert a decimal number into binary number. Okay. It is explained in your first unit of C programming language, I hope. Okay. So refer to that topics, or else you can refer to that materials given to you as part of PPSUC. First unit, first topic is conversion of decimal numbers into binary only. So look into that topic to understand how these binary numbers came. Okay. So now to understand the XOR operation, so we know that 0 exclusive OR 0 is 0, 0 exclusive OR 1 is 1, 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, and 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0. Okay. So 0 exclusive OR 1 is 1, 0 exclusive OR 0 is 0, 1 exclusive OR 1 is also 0, 1 exclusive OR 1 is 0 again, 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, 1 exclusive OR 0 is 1, 0 exclusive OR 0 is 0, 0 exclusive OR 0 is 0. Okay, so this will be the number you will get. 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. Right. So this is about exclusive OR operation. You should remember the truth table. Okay, the difference between binary OR and exclusive OR operation. And the next one is ones complement, which is a simple operation. Binary ones complement. It simply flips the bits from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. That means negates the bits. If it finds a 0, it negates the 0 to 1. If it finds a 1, it negates the 1 to 0. That means 0, when applied with this ones complement operation, it will be converted to 1. If you have 1 in the number, then 1 will be converted to 0. Okay, so for example, if you take this 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, that is A. If you apply this tilde A, okay, then it will produce the flipped bits. That is 0 is flipped as 1. The second bit is 0. 0 is flipped as 1 again. Next 4 bits are 1s, so you will get 4 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0. 4 ones are converted to 4 zeros, and the last 2 bits are zeros, so they will be flipped as 1s. So this will be the number you are getting. It's a simple operation. Simply negate the 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. Okay, so it's a ones complement operation. The next one is binary left shift operation, which shifts the bits towards left. To understand it, let us take an example here. This is actually A left shift 2. Okay, let us understand this operation. I'll write it here. So A is 60. We know that the number is represented in binary as 0 0 1 1, okay, 1 1 0 0. This is the number. So if now if you apply this binary left shift operation, you need to specify the number of bits to be shifted towards left. Okay, so suppose I want to perform this a left shift 2. Okay, you can take any number here. A left shift 1, a left shift 2, a left shift 3. This specifies the number of bits to be shifted. Suppose I want to perform this a left shift 2, which means that, okay, remove 2 bits on left side because it is mentioned as shift 2 bits. So remove 2 bits on left side, whatever bits are available here, just remove them and add 2 zeros on right side. Okay, irrespective of what is removed on left side, you should insert only zeros. You need to remember this point. Okay, zeros will be inserted on right side. Now the number is going to be 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 3, 2 power 4, that is 16, plus 32, plus 64. Okay, plus 128. So what will be the number? 128 plus 64, it is 192. 192 plus 32, it is 224 plus 16, 240. So the answer is going to be 240 if you perform left shift operation. Okay, so if I calculate a left shift 1, okay, so what will be the answer for a left shift 1? Then you are going to remove only 1 0, okay, and a single 0 is attached here. The remaining number is this one. So 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0. What it is going to be? It's going to be 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 3. So it starts with the 8 and then 16, okay, and then 32 and then 64. Okay, so 64 plus 32 is 96. 96 plus 16 is 112. 112 plus 8 is 120. So if you left shift 1, it is going to be 120. So if you observe these two answers, a left shift 1 is 120 and a left shift 2 is 240, then you can derive a formula for calculating a left shift n to identify the value directly. So what will be it? A left shift n can be easily calculated using a formula a into, okay, a into, this is multiplication operation, a into 2 to the power n. Okay, so if you write it as a left shift 2, it means a into 2 square, that is 60 into 4, which is equal to 240. In this case, it is going to be a into 2 power 1, that is 60 into 2, which is equal to 120. That means you can calculate the value of any given n for left shift operation. For example, a left shift 3 can be directly calculated as 60 into 2 power 3. Okay, 60 into 2 power 3, that is 480. You can directly calculate the value. So try to remember this formula. A left shift n is equals to a into 2 to the power of n for calculating the left shift value of a specified number of bits. Okay. And the last one is opposite to this binary right shift operation is opposite to binary left shift. What we'll do is we'll perform shifting the bits towards right. Okay, shifting the bits towards right. For example, if I consider the value of a again, it is 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0. Okay. Now For example, I want to find out A right shift 2. It is wrongly written here. A right shift 2, I want to find out. You should specify the number of bits to be shifted. It is compulsory. A right shift 2 means that shift 2 bits towards right. So what you need to do is remove the specified number of bits on right side. So it is mentioned as 2 here. Therefore, remove 2 bits on right side and insert the same number of zeros irrespective of what is removed. Even though you remove ones here, you should insert zeros only. Okay, so on left hand side, insert zeros, the same number of zeros that are removed from right hand side. Okay, so now the remaining number is 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 1, which means 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 power 3, 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is going to be 15. So if you observe this, the formula for right shift operation can also be derived as a right shift n is equals to a by 2 power n. Okay, a by 2 power n. It is actually integer division. Therefore, you should write it as a 2 slashes 2 power n because it returns an integer value. Okay, so this is a right shift n. A left shift n is a multiplication operation, a into 2 power n, whereas a right shift n is a division operation, integer division operation, which is represented as a by 2 power n. Okay. So this is about the binary bitwise operators, right? Yeah. Next one is membership operators in Python, which are used to find out whether a particular member is part of a particular sequence or not. So basically, there are two types of membership operators available in Python. One is in, and the second one is not in. Okay, two types, in, not in, to verify whether a particular member is present in a given sequence or not. So let us assume that X is any sequence in Python. So of course, you don't know what is a sequence till now. Let us imagine that X is defined with some sequence of values. Okay, suppose I have 10 comma 20 comma 5, something like this. So if I write 5 in X, it checks whether 5 is a member of this X or not. If it is a member of the corresponding sequence, then it returns true. So in our case, if X is defined like this, it returns a true. Okay. Otherwise, it returns a false. Okay. If the specified member is not part of the corresponding sequence, then this statement returns false. So the in operator returns either true or false based on whether the given member is present in the corresponding sequence or not. If it is not present, then it returns false. If it is present, then it returns true. Okay, it's a simple operation. Similarly, this second operator, membership operator, not in, is opposite to this first one, in operator. If it returns true if the member is not in X. Okay, so in this case, because 5 is present in X, this will return false. Okay, if the member is not present, this returns true. If member is present, then it returns false. Okay, so it is asking a question. If 5 is not in X, then return true. Otherwise, return false. Because it contains, it returns a false. Okay, so the membership operators also returns either true or false, the Boolean values, based on a particular member is present in the given sequence or not. Okay, so it can be applied with integer sequences or string sequences or any sequence of objects, valid objects in Python. Okay. So let us have a look at these membership operators, how you can use these membership operators using IDLE now. Okay, let me open the IDLE to understand how it works. Suppose I am defining a tuple here, which consists of some values. Right? So I have defined a tuple here. Now I will check whether 6 in X. See, it is returning true because 6 is part of the X. Okay. Of course, I will check it with a member which is not present. So 15 in X I am trying. So it is returning false. Again, I will use NOTing for the same examples. Okay. You should give a space here. 6 not in X, I'm asking. So if it is not in the X, it returns true. Otherwise, returns false. See, 6, because 6 is present in X, it is returning a false here. Okay. Again, use the 15 because it is not part of the X. If you check it as 15 not in X, yes, it is giving true. Okay. You can use like this. And also, you can check with strings also. Okay. You can check it with strings also. Suppose I'm writing H in hello. See what it is saying. It is part of hello, therefore it is returning true. Okay. Suppose I'll use some Y. Okay, Y in hello. It is false because Y is not part of the corresponding string. So you can use this membership operators either with integer sequences or strings or any valid sequence of objects in Python. Okay. So that is about the membership operators. Okay, let us continue with our remaining set of operators. Okay, we have completed this now. And the last category of operators is identity operators. The last one is identity operators. There are two types of identity operators, is not. To check the identicalness, that is whether two members or two variables or two operands, whatever you call, are identical or not. If two operands are identical, then this is operator returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. And is not returns true if the given operands are not identical. Identical means if both the variables or both the operands refers to the same memory location. Okay. So these identity operators compares the memory locations represented by the variables. Okay. So it compares the memory. I'll explain it with the help of examples now. Let us look at the example that given here. X is equal to 5, okay, and Y is equal to 5. So as I explained in the earlier class, whenever you have X is equal to 5, if this statement is executed, what will happen is 5 will be created in the memory and the X acts as a reference to this memory location. Okay, 5 is an object in memory. X is a reference to this memory location. And if you say Y is equals to 5, it means that Y is also a reference to this 5 because 5 is already created. The object is available at 0x100 here. It is taken for your reference. Okay. So both X and Y are now referring to the same memory location that contains 5. So whenever you use a same value in your Python program, it will be same memory location. Please remember that this is a specialty of your Python programming language. Okay. Right. So in this case, if you check this, X is Y. Okay. If you check this, X is Y, then it returns true. Why? Because X and Y both are referring to the same memory location here. X and Y both are referring to the same memory location. So it compares the memory location to which these objects are, these variables are referring to. So it is same 0x100. Therefore, X is Y is true because X and Y are identical. Identical in the sense they refer to the same memory location. Okay, so identical means that they refer to the same memory location. It does not mean it never compares, is never compares values. It compares only the address, okay, address of the object where these operands are referring to. Now, if I use y is equal to 6 now, okay, 6 is created separately with some other address, okay. Now, if you compare x is y, then it returns false. Why? X is not pointing to the same memory location pointed by y. X is pointing here, 0x100. Y is pointing to some other location. Okay, so this is how it works. And to understand it clearly between the comparison operator and the x is y, okay, so here is one more example. X is equal to 5. The first one, x is equal to 5. So what will happen is 5 is created in the memory and x is referring to this memory location. Okay, so this is a memory location. Assume that it is 0x100, just like we did it in the previous example. Okay, 0x100. It is representing some hexadecimal address, right? And then y is equal to 5.0 because 5.0 is a different number, not 5. It is created as a separate object. Why? This is an integer object, so created separately. This is a float object, real object. It is created separately at some other location. Let us assume that it is 0x200 at location 0x200. So the locations are not same. Okay. Therefore, if you compare x is equal to y, because they compare values, value is same, 5 and 5.0, both are going to be same. So it returns true. Okay. But if you write it x is y, this will compare the addresses. Addresses are not same. The different objects will get different addresses, right? Therefore, it returns a false. You need to understand this difference properly. Comparison operator compares the values, whereas the identity operator compares the addresses of the corresponding objects. Okay, so I think you understood it now, the difference between the identity operators and the other operators, so that is comparison operators. Okay, so I have just shown how is behaves. This is not is complement of this first one, is operator. For example, if I write x is not y here in this example, okay, if I write it as x is not y, then it will return false. Why? X and y are pointing to the same memory location. So this will return a false. Whereas this will return a true. If I write x is not y here, this will return a true. Okay. So this is just, if you understand this, you understood this also. Okay. Because this is opposite to the behavior of is. Right. So this is about identity operators. Both these membership operators and identity operators are very important in your examination point of view. You should read it carefully with the help of examples. So let me show you in ideally how these identity operators behaves. Okay. Right. I'll create x is equal to 5. Okay, let me take some other variables. X, a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 5. And now I'll test a is b. See, it is saying true. The reason is a and b both referring to the same object 5 in memory. Okay. Right. Now let us say a is equal to 5. A is equal to 5. But this time I'll create 5.0, b is equal to 5.0. I will check a is b. False, it is saying. Why? 5 is an integer object which gets a memory location. 5.0 is a float object which gets another memory location, a different memory location. Okay. So for example, if you write a is equals to b, a comparison operation, it returns true because the values are same. That is what I explained. Okay, comparison operator returns true if the values are same, but is operator, that is identity operator, returns true only if both the variables are operands referring to the same object in memory. Okay, so that is how it works, right? So that is about the identity operators. Yeah, so we have completed the types of operators now. Let us move on to a few more topics today. This is about the data types available in Python. Okay, I'll quickly go through it because you don't need to declare any data type in Python, but you should understand what kind of values you can use in Python. Okay, so these are the possible types of values we can use in Python, and the variable type will be decided based on which value you place it into. Okay, so the first category is text type data, that is strings. Second category is numeric types of data, which has three types: int, float, and complex data type. Complex data type looks like this: 1 plus 2j. Okay, something like that, which consists of integer part and a complex part. Okay. And sequence types are two types: lists and tuples. And also other categories are there like sets. We'll discuss about them later. And mapping types are one type, that is dictionaries. Set types are also available: set and frozen sets. Boolean types are one type, bool types, that is true or false. And binary types are bytes, byte array, and memory view, which consists of zeros and ones. Okay, so these are the available data types in Python, but we don't declare them in Python based on which value. For example, look into these examples. A is equal to 5. A is an integer data type. Because we are placing this 5 into A is returned. A is considered as an integer type. Okay. So if you run this code, A is equal to 5, print of A comma is of type of A, it returns class int. Okay, I'll show you with the examples later. Okay, so it returns class int. And then if A is equal to 2.0, this is a float data type because it is placed into A. Now A will be automatically treated as a float data type. So A is of type float. This function returns the category of data type. Okay. And A is equal to 1 plus 2j, it's a complex number. Okay. And if you type this print statement, A is complex number. Okay. It's a question we are displaying as a message. Is instance of 1 plus 2j comma complex. That means this is a type of complex or not. This will check is instance of. If it is true, then it will be true. Otherwise, it returns a false. Okay. So these are the basic data types. I will just show you how it can be done with our ideally. Okay. Quickly, I'll go through it. Right. So let us say A is equal to 5. Okay. Now it is an integer. So I'll type the print as type of A is, okay, comma, the function is type of the variable is A. Okay. See, it is showing the class int. Similarly, if I use A is equal to some 6.5, it's a float. So I'll use the print function again. The type is comma type of A. It is showing the class float. Type is class float. Okay. Now let us define it with a complex number, 1 plus 2j, something like this. Okay. And then I will print the type of A with a message, type is, comma, the function is type of A. It is a class complex type. Okay, so this is what the different categories of number types I have explained in this slide. Okay, so now refer to this. There are 3 numeric types: int, float, complex. I have shown the examples for this. Okay, and these are advanced data types. I will explain them once we complete our second unit. Okay, so this is about the data types in Python. There is one more topic that we are discussing today. It is about type conversions. Okay, the process of converting one data type into another data type is called as type conversion. In Python, there are 2 types of conversions available, type conversions. One is implicit type conversion and the other one is explicit type conversion. Implicit type conversion is done automatically by your Python interpreter. We don't need to do anything. Okay, for example, look into this. I am declaring 2 variables. Num int is equal to 1, 2, 3. It's a variable. And the second variable is num float is equal to 1.23. New number is equal to num int plus num float I am writing. If you observe this expression, the expression contains 2 data types. One is integer and the other one is float. So whenever the interpreter identifies this kind of expressions, then the smaller data types are automatically promoted to the higher data types. So we know that float is higher data type and integer is a smaller data type. Therefore, this integer is promoted to float. Okay. So if you run this program, data type of num int is type of num int. Data type of num float is type of num float, which will display the corresponding type of the corresponding variable. Okay, but when you display the type of this num new, it will display it as a largest data type, that is float. Okay, so which means that this is promoted to float. Okay, so you can type this program in your IDLE to check what will happen with this example. Right, I am leaving this task to you. All of you, please try it with your IDLE. Type this code and test whether it is working properly or not. This type of num new should be returning float type, class float. Okay. So that is implicit type conversion. We did not do anything here. Python interpreter automatically converted into to float, promoted into to float, and this num new is automatically promoted as float. Okay. Now let us see what is this explicit type conversion and where we actually use. So this is another example. I am declaring num int is 123. Num string is 456. This is a string, not a number. It is a string. Okay. Now I am declaring, I am printing the type of num int and the type of num str. This will display class int and this will display class str, right? And if I try to perform this addition operation on integer and string, okay, then it is not possible to promote either string into integer or int into string. It is not possible. Therefore, it returns a type error. Okay. It returns a type error, which means that addition operation cannot be performed on strings and integers. So in such cases, we need to apply the explicit type conversion in our home. Okay. So let us see now how explicit conversion can be used to make this program correct. So explicit conversion is also called as typecasting, in which we forcefully convert one data type into another data type. Okay, so this is also called as typecasting. Remember this name. Either it is called as explicit type conversion or it is called as typecasting. Okay, now let us continue with the corresponding example. Num int is 123, num str is 456. We know that these 2 types are class int and class str. Okay, and now because we cannot perform the addition operation directly on integer and string, what I am doing is, look at this statement. I am converting this numstr into integer by typecasting it. This is called typecasting. Int of numstr. You can convert it into float also. Float of numstr. Okay, so use the corresponding data type into which you want to convert a particular data type. This is forceful conversion. We call it as a typecasting or explicit type conversion. Okay, so numstr, now the string is converted into integer and it is again stored into numstr. Now this contains an integer, not a string, because it is converted properly. Okay, so you can test it with type of numstr. Now it will return class int. Okay, why? We converted it forcefully into an integer type. Okay, you can test this program. And because now numint and numstr both are integers, we can apply this addition operation. Numint plus numstr will perform addition, and you can store the result into this variable numsum. You can display the result and you can display the type of numsum because both are integers. This also returns the class int. Okay. So that is how explicit type conversion works. We need to write in our own to convert a particular data type into other data type. Okay. So this is an example. Please test this example in your Python ideally, all of you. Please practice this also to understand how it works. Okay. That is about explicit type conversion, right? Okay, so that's all for today. Today we have discussed three types of operators, starting with bitwise operators, then membership operators, and then identity operators. And also we have discussed about the basic data types used in Python. Then we have seen what is implicit conversion and what is explicit type conversion with the help of examples. So today's task is please practice those example programs given for implicit type conversion and explicit type conversion. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you all for your patient listening. See you in the next class. Thank you all.